Well, I definitely think UX is a good idea. I think that the main thing we can focus on, and that also links into the previous meeting, is what would a UX look like of many competing compound statements. And we can start with compounds because they're something that we all have some type of understanding of at least. But I think it extrapolates to any more complex type of multi-premise or function or many different names that we've given it. That like, yeah, combine multiple claims in one fashion or another. Like, what would that look like UX wise? Because whenever I say I believe like sticking to atomic claims as pros and cons in a base layer overview is more canonical in the sense that it will more easily centralize disagreements. That's because that's what I envision. If you break that up and you start grouping them, you separate the disagreement, but that's because the way I'm visualizing it, but maybe it becomes more clear if we try to actually draw that. The question is how.
Yeah, I think the easiest starting point is to show debate map, and you know, that thing I did in debate map will kind of help show it. Debate map only supports the multi-premise arguments, but I mean, I think it's very like you can get there incrementally from there to how equations and things like that would be represented.
It's not singular multi-premise arguments I'm confused about. I fully agree. If there's no problem with competing multi-premise arguments with overlapping claims, there is no issue. What I'm saying is, how do you deal with multiple multi-premise arguments that use the same claims and might or might not be the same, and how do you curate that, and how do you show the intermediate states? That I want to visualize, because that's where I see the problem. To discuss this, we can't just look at one multi-premise argument. We need to look at one and, oh, how might someone else structure that? How are we going to display these side by side? That's what I want to discuss and draw.
Well, okay. I mean, I'll open the debate that I fleshed out, and we can try to pick one from there. I mean, we have the one. Yeah. Hold on, let me share my screen. Okay, you all seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. So the way it does multi-premise here, I don't know if this is the best one. Well, anyway, I'll start with this, and I can find a better one if necessary. The way it does multi-premise, and I to some degree see this for functions and things like that, is that it allows you to put a text that's maybe simplified or more readable to people. And the internal structure is an ordered set of claims that are its premises, right? And then, you know, in the case of debate map, because it's actually a multi-premise argument, not a multi-premise or compound claim, it has its relevance part as well for the support. So these are the arguments for or against the support that go here. And then the arguments for or against, and you know, the subclaims are under each one. So if you, in terms of centralizing arguments, right, you have the argument about whether or not this is true, or you believe this, right? The life state will be whatever.
Then you have an either solution, right? Whether or not you have compound claims, you would always have atomic claims. So that centralization is always there.
Right. Hold on a second. This. Opa, tinha esquecido até. Peraí, estou em reunião aqui. So yeah, yes. So that's centralized and reusable and passed around. So if this weren't if this were a compound claim and not a compound, a multi-premise argument, which is the way I think it should be, then you wouldn't have this part. You would just have in the compound claim, you would have the two atomic claims. Stop it. And that would centralize the argument about each one under the atomic claim, and there's no arguments for the compound claim. And then, as I said, I only see the compound claim being useful as a premise, so it's really a compound premise. And then you would put that as the premise of a support, and you would then have the arguments about whether or not this is a good support in here. So there's two directions we can go with this, which would be, well, there's a couple directions, but one is, okay, what about composable compound premises, right? Well, then you could have a compound premise be one of the claims or premises. There again, we have a modeling problem. It is a claim in this sense, or a premise that would go here. So you would have, if you're doing this or this and this and this and this and this, then this could be a compound of several ands, and each atomic claim would centralize its arguments. And then you would have another claim here with an OR relationship or something like that. That would be essentially, in other words, the compound premise or claim would, so you would need to have something that describes in here the relationship between each of these claims or premises, right? Is this an AND relationship? Is this, if it were a function, then it would have to be like, oh, the function is this, and then you have a label that says this is like your acceleration and this is your mass, something like that.
So I'm just sorry. Today my brain is a bit woozy. I think I'm still. I don't know if it's the effect of the vaccine. The vaccine made me not sleep well, so I'll do what I can. But when you say we have a modeling problem between premise and claim, I don't see the modeling problem. Premise is a role in the support, and claim is the premise. But what I'm seeing when I look at that diagram of yours is a decomposition into discrete values. And I'm not saying it's easy or whatever, but in an ideal world, what I would want is for people to have kind of three cursors with a range and saying, I think the economic impact will be between this much and that much. And I think that the number of lives affected will be between this many and that many. And I think the conversion factor is between this much and that much. And we'd get a kind of histogram of what people believe. And in some cases, arguments like it cannot be less than this much because it cannot be more than that much because arguments giving bounds placed on the axis. But I'd very much want to see here's the axis, estimated cost, and arguments saying more than this, less than this, which is a totally different, in which I expect null intersection because I don't expect people to agree on an intersection. Yeah, I need to look more at this, at the way they do.
I happen to be borrowing something that's already here for a different purpose, but it's a similar thing. It's not on the values in the claim. It's about your score for the claim.
The score.
But yeah.
What I'm saying is here we're speaking about, it's not a score in the sense of how believable is this, but it's a score in the sense of how intense.
It's a range of values.
It's range of values. And I would model that explicitly. Now, of course, that's, as I said, in the best of worlds. The creating these ad hoc things takes time. And what do you do in the meantime is a perfectly valid question. But I think that somebody saying, here's my claim, it's too much, and then you actually refine the claim and saying, because I think we have those three ranges. And so the three ranges become subclaims, which are not supporting, not contradicting, but are supportable and contradictable, and become components of the overall claim. But given those three range, I think it's more, or I think it's less, right? Or it can be argued to be more or less equivalent, doesn't matter. But there's an overall claim, and then there's a more precise version with ranges, and then there's the atomic claims that go into the range, that justify the ranges.
But just wondering, like, isn't it just for this example, for this exercise, UI exercise right now, does it matter that the claims have numbers in them?
It's a really bad example, I think.
I think it's a great example because it shows the limits. The limits.
I think it's both.
It's an example of a comparative, like of more of a parametric thing, but that's not the case right now. I mean,
well, it's not the. It's a case that fits really badly in argument maps, and that's why it's a great example, and that's why you made it.
But no, it's an example of a different topic than I wanted to talk about, and
exactly. It's too complex. That's why my example from yesterday was just around restaurants or something. To remove some of these more difficult questions, and we could focus on something simpler and work our way up to more complex.
Yeah, and I'm always like, no, let's look at the complex things. Otherwise, we're hiding the difficulties till later, and we're losing our time discussing simplistic examples that don't generalize well.
Well, except that, maybe the simplistic examples, there are, maybe the most advanced examples don't generalize well either. In other words, if you do have discrete options, are you going to do it with ranges and
no, I agree. I agree totally. I'm not saying everything's a range, but the intuition I'm getting from the generic thing is that there is such a thing as a compound, and it is where I still do agree with Stephen is that it is very interesting to go from the compound to the atomic claims ASAP, so that you can argue the atomic claims independently of the compound, because it is a better factorization. It's more economical to do so than to argue one compound at a time. But I'm saying the compound still has value. Now, in this case, the compound is parametric.
It's a strawman argument because, again, nobody ever said that a compound claim doesn't have value, but it's not a discussion.
No, but it's not a strawman argument. It's the question is,
you're arguing it doesn't have value, but nobody's arguing it doesn't have value. So it's a strawman argument.
Let me try to see if I got what I see as your position right. And if I'm wrong, then you can call me strawman, fair enough. I think you're arguing for a representation directly from the visualization, and I even agree with that, directly from the conclusion to the atomic claims, because it's easier to argue the atomic claims and to hide the compound argument. Not that it's not useful, but in a separate visualization.
My intuition is that it's easier to find disagreement when you only represent the atomic claims.
So what does only represent the atomic claims? That means the non-multi-premise approach that I have over here. Hold on.
In the case of this example,
no multi-premise.
That's why I'm saying it's a bad example, because we had a separate discussion about how relevant it is to add specific numbers to an argument map, right? And that's why I think it's a bad example.
If we can ignore that aspect of it for a moment, it's a good example,
then take one that doesn't have comparative numbers on a scale. Take one.
Can't you just ignore the fact that? Can you ignore the fact? Just ignore for the fact for a moment that they're numbers, right? Pretend they're discrete. Pretend this is the complete set of numbers, okay, or whatever. If we can have an example that has discrete alternatives, then you can pretend this one is one with discrete alternatives enough for us to talk about the UX, right? It still holds in that case then that you have a comparison here. When you have a comparison, you're going to have varieties in the comparison. And if you're trying to centralize debate about each one, right? But so in a comparison, A greater than B, what you're saying is, I would like to centralize around debate over what is A, if A is true or whatever, right? I would like to centralize the discussion of that around an atomic claim, right? Okay, that's what I'm doing here without the multi-premise. I mean, you still have multiple premises, right? Because you're making a statement that requires multiple things to be true, right? And so you need to include both of them somehow, and keeping them atomic means keeping them as separate claims, as separate supports.
Let me share a screen. I think it's going to be easier if I try something else, because the numbers here in the example is really detracting from what I try to do.
I think you have to stop sharing, Tim.
Oh yeah, okay.
Making coffee, I'll be back too.
So a good old syllogism. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yep.
So I'll remove this for now. Socrates is mortal. Men are mortal. Socrates is a man. This would be the non-formalized form. Men are mortal is a claim. Socrates is a man is a claim, right? This is what I call the centralized disagreement base layer. The problem I see is if you don't have that as a base layer, people can still add men are mortal as pro. They can add Socrates as a man as pro. They can also add men are mortal and Socrates is a man as pro. Now we have 3. So which one of the 3 is it? Do you keep all of them? How do you curate? Those are some of the questions I'm looking for answers for. And men are mortal and Socrates is a man.
Okay,
this becomes a bit difficult because it is a syllogism, but
I
I
may
guess
have
what
an
you
answer
say-
to that question.
which question?
The question is, how do you model this? Right? You said, oh, I need answers to those questions. How do I model this? How do I avoid
No,
the
not how do you
confusion?
model this. Like what's the resolution here? So somebody has
Yes,
added
exactly.
man and mortal. Somebody has added Socrates as a man. Somebody has added man and mortal and Socrates as a man. What is the solution here?
Okay, here's my proposal. What I'm saying is, I think we agreed that we needed compound claim because sometimes we have compound claims which are not informal and need to be formalized into atomic claims. So for that reason, we need compound claim as an intermediate form. But basically, once they've been decomposed, totally make them disappear. Totally never use them as premise, use pure multi-premise arguments. And basically anything that is a conjunction claim, a compound claim, decompose it ruthlessly and stop using it once you're done decomposing it. Mark it as replaced by a more formal version, atomic, thank you.
Okay, I think you misunderstood me. This thing here. Okay, that's
Let me share screen again.
men are
because we could at least-
mortal. 2 Socrates is a man.
Let me share
3.
because
1
at
and
least we
2.
could do it in debate map.
We don't need a whole debate map to go through this issue. So you
But
already have a
it helps
compound
to
claim that
visualize,
points
yeah.
to 1 and 2. Somebody adds 1, men are mortal. Somebody else adds 2, Socrates is a man.
And somebody else adds 3, and basically,
Which is a formalized pointing to the other 2 other ones.
yeah.
1, men are mortal. So does 1 and 2 stay? Does it replace, etc.? That's my question.
What I'm proposing here, and that's new, is saying once we've taken the informal 3 into the formal 3, we place it as
What is informal and what is a formal 3?
informal 3 is the sentence. Man and mortal and Socrates is a man.
Okay, yeah.
Formal 3 is, well, actually, this is a conjunction.
So you're saying 4. You're saying 4 men are mortal and Socrates is a man.
Yeah, as a sentence.
Yeah.
So I'm saying people, someone enters that.
But that's my point. So now we have 4 forms.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, when we see 4, we ASAP formalize it as 3, and we mark both as unusable. We say 3 and 4, never use them in an argument, use 1 and 2 in the argument with an implicit conjunction.
So you're basically saying only 3 remains.
Only 1 and 2 remain.
No, because you mentioned a conjunction. Why is a conjunction?
The conjunction is there. We keep it, but we mark it unusable. We keep it for memory, but we mark it unusable. We say this is never a premise. As Tim said, this is not a claim. This is not a premise. Don't use it as a premise. Ever.
Which ones? 1 and 2?
3 and 4. 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
But
Never
1
use
and
them.
2 are
No, they're premises. They're not claims.
1 and 2, yeah. 1 and 2 are claims in themselves. Men are immortal. Here.
Yeah, that's a claim. And
Socrates is a man. So you're saying don't model compounds at all if you remove these? Boom, they're gone.
I'm saying keep them because you want to know that the informal 4 was changed into the formal 3, and you need to keep a trace of that formalization. Keep
But
them
then
in
you need
memory.
to keep 3, right?
I keep 3 and 4, but never use them. Mark them as forbidden, verboten, don't use.
Okay, I don't understand what you mean by keep 3 but don't use it. Why are you keeping? No, I don't get it.
Okay, this is about the fact somebody may enter a variant of 4 again. So we'll say, oh, this is equivalent of 4. It's been formalized to 3, and 3 translates to 1 and 2. So we can remember.
But even for the sake of argument, forget about 4. That
No,
nobody's allowed. Nobody's allowed to add.
4 is an important part of my argument. And actually, I'd add 5. Socrates is a man, and men are mortal. Somebody makes the same thing in reversed. Somebody makes the equivalent sentence with just the other way around, and or they use human, and we understood that man is understood to mean human in that context. Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is there's many somebody writes 4, we translate to 3, we said don't use 3, use 1 and 2. And then somebody comes up with 5.
Can you claim, what does it mean UX wise? Don't use 4, use 1 and 2. How do you visualize? What's the result? Can you share screen and draw what you see?
No,
what
no,
happens?
But they're just hidden.
What I'm saying is 3 is not hidden. It's not shown. It's what you get is 2. You get there's an argument object, and the argument object has 2 premises, 1 and 2. It's multi-premise.
Yeah. So.
And so somebody presumably drew an argument from 4 to Socrates is mortal, which is the conclusion, right? And once we've done the work, we replace this single compound premise argument with the multi-premise argument.
I don't even have the. So no, I don't get it. So here you have. You're saying only these 2 are allowed, but you keep 3. How in this view will you ever show 3?
I will not show 3. What I'm saying is, suppose
then why do you model it? What's the purpose of modeling 3 if you never show 3 or use it in any way?
It's because, let's go back to the spreadsheet, please. If somebody enters 5 as an argument, like I'm supposing somebody entered 4 as an argument first, and then we decomposed it to 1 and 2, and then we hide the whole 3, 4. Okay, we translate 4 into 1 and 2, and then somebody enters 5. Don't make it disappear. I'm using it. Somebody enters 5 and say, well, actually 5 is equivalent to 4, which is equivalent to 3, which is equivalent to 1 and 2. Because we have that memory of translating.
draw me this, like show me this
No,
user
there's
intervention.
no-
I don't
Show
get
me,
it.
let me share screen here because
Yeah,
like
frankly.
it's in debate map. I put it in debate map and
Isn't it just
and-
about the history, like Wikipedia
Yeah, it's
history?
about,
It's not
I'm
not
keeping
shown in the
archives.
article.
It's not shown.
Yeah.
It's not in the UX.
Just-
How do I have to repeat that? It's not shown. It's
just
it's
like
a journal.
Wikipedia.
It's a log. I keep 3 and 4 in the log. I don't keep them otherwise, and that makes it easier to recompute from 5 to 1 and 2 because I've kept 3-4 transformation in the log. That's all it is. In the visualization, somebody tries to enter 5 and it gets, well, this is about equivalent to 1 and 2. Thank you. Disappear 5 again, and we get 1 and 2. What is there to show? I have to do an animation where
So-
this thing disappears and is replaced. Yeah, sure.
And then it highlights 1 and 2 or
Yes,
something.
yes.
So that's the visualization I was asking for.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you're highlighting 1 and 2 seems okay, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing.
So you're worried about visualizing the transformations. Is that what you're worried about?
No, I'm arguing that if you only allow atomic claims, there is no discussion, right? It stays, it all stays. And yes, you can add them in one way and the other, but that doesn't matter. There's no disagreement on doing so. Once you start adding compounds, then if you want to show those compounds, and indeed, if you don't show them, like Mike Antoine is suggesting, you don't have that problem. If you do want to show them, my question is, which one do you show? And even like who decides that the transformation should be done or not, which will require also some UI, because anyone can add UI elements like this and that is 1 and 2. But what if that is total bogus? How do you prevent that from happening? So at some point you'll have to visualize that so you can argue yes or no, that's not the case.
There you are correct. And by the way, when I say don't visualize 3, it's not perfectly accurate. It's because I'm supposing there's a multi-premise argument, and it has to be compared with the mono-premise argument where somebody would say, oh, it's enough to say Socrates is a man and you don't need the other premise. And you want to compare those two, the multi-premise with the mono-premise. And this comparison is something. So the multiplicity is visualized somehow. But I want to say that the mono-premise argument versus the bi-premise argument are different nodes. And that way, the composition is a node. So even though I'm saying don't show 3, well, I'm showing the link of 1 and 2 combined as opposed to separate.
Okay, but my question is, what if somebody adds 1 separate, 1 if somebody adds 2 separate, 1 if somebody adds 1 and 2 combined? Like
Exactly.
Which one do you keep and when do you decide? That's my question.
Right.
You can't just say, oh, they're linked. My question is exactly what if they're not linked?
No, that's
And what if another
So-
person comes in and says 1 and 2 and 3 are linked?
when you say combined, just checking, do you mean as part of the support argument, or do you mean as a compound claim independently of an argument?
Come again?
When you say 1 and 2 combined, do you mean as part of the argument leading to the conclusion Socrates is mortal, or do you mean as an independent compound claim independently of the argument?
It can be either. For the sake of this discussion, doesn't really matter. Both are
Okay.
additional forms of formalization that will have might potentially conflict with how we
Because
want
I'm
do
treating
that
them
and how many
differently.
claims to include, which is the
I'm
point.
treating them differently. Like if it's as part of the argument, I would say, yes, I would have them together as part of a multi-premise argument, as opposed to a different argument with the same conclusion. So that would be show as a different node with only a single of those atomic premises. In the case and compound claims, basically, I would not show once they've been analyzed. I would, like, people may enter compound claims as text, but ASAP you analyze them and then they become a combination of atomic claims as part of an argument.
Yeah, but my question remains, what do you do with people entering different multi-premise arguments with semi-overlapping claims?
Yeah, that's perfectly valid. And as I said, those would be different nodes. Like they would be different support nodes. There would be, oh,
that's the visualization I want to see. And that's what I was trying to do in Excel.
Yeah, okay, fair. And what I imagine I would do, because that's not something I've thought about deeply, but what I imagine I would do is show, let me still trying to make that coffee. I would have basically, here's the conclusion, here's all the atoms, so we can discuss them independently, and probably have, there's an argument that's a column, right, which is saying, oh, this one, there's a one with this one alone, like a column with check marks, right? Here's this combination of those is sufficient. The combination of those is sufficient. The combination of those is sufficient.
It
So
sounds
kind
very
of
similar
matrix
to.
view.
It sounds similar to some really quick mock I posted in Hangouts indeed. But what you're saying is you do agree with base layer that only shows the atomic claims.
You've convinced me of that, and that was a good intuition. Show the atomics and show how they compose independently, possibly in the same view.
Yeah.
Showing them independently, you've convinced me it's useful. Yes.
Okay, so we got that far. But when I say base layer, that's what I mean. I mean a base layer which only shows atomic claims. And yes, you can have arguments, and it can be a matrix that shows these are arguments that show the claim these are sufficient. Yeah. My claim is that the problem is with many competing arguments, it's useful to have those arguments, but I think it's going to be a harder overview than only showing the atomic claims. And it seems like I convinced you of that. My point is these arguments.
I don't understand. I don't understand that point. I don't.
Okay, so let's.
I mean,
that by showing all the atomics, you have a nice overview of disagreement and agreements, or.
Okay, now it's worth.
I don't understand why the goal is to show only atomics. Like, in other words, what you're saying is you would not want to show a multi-premise argument like this.
I'm saying
cut out this middleman.
If you show that it's in a second layer.
But the second layer could be in the same view, by the way.
Yeah, it could be in the same view that says like, here are all the arguments arguing for this conclusion. And then you can even hover over them, and then all the claims light up, which are used in that argument. You can have some very fancy shit. But the point is, if you show an overview of all arguments, and they might or might not reuse some claims, if you only show a list of like 20 competing arguments, some use some claims, others use others. There might even be some overlap in duplicates and all that stuff that needs to be curated out. Fine enough. My argument is that is less easy to find disagreement than only drilling it down to the atomic claims used within the arguments.
Okay, I still don't get that. First of all,
and to get that, you really try to sketch competing, not just one, competing entries of users of different arguments arguing for a conclusion, for the same conclusion. Competing multi-premise arguments that use the same claims, and then you get the point I'm trying to make.
So okay,
I'll try to make
multi-premise. No multi-premise here. What are you saying would show up under Socrates as mortal?
Okay, first explain why do you have multi-premise supported by. What's the difference between these first three blue ones?
They're different visualizations. I'm doing a base layer one
okay.
Where there's only atomic things. Right here, the one that's open is atomic.
So Socrates is mortal is a conclusion here, the claim being discussed?
Yeah, Socrates is mortal is a claim, is a conclusion.
So add a multi-premise argument there, I guess Socrates is a man and all men are mortal.
Well, okay, that's in the other one. That's if you want multi-premise. Okay, so we're in multi-premise here.
No, but if you have multi-premise, you can also add arguments with just one premise. Okay, so just add as one argument, Socrates is a man. Then add another one, all men are mortal. And then add as another one, Socrates is a man and all men are mortal. So you can add three supporting claims already. One is a multi-premise, the other one is single premise, and the other one is
Right.
This kind of shows what I'm getting at. Like now you have three different supporting claims. They can each be whatever. I mean, they can be multi-premise, they may be functions, they may be whatever you want to support there in more complexity than atomic claims. Like, how are you here going to quickly find disagreement, and how are you, like, what does this show? What's the point of this overview? And how do you decide what stays and what goes? Or you don't?
Well, okay, so first of all, there's an intuition here that is interesting to think about, which is, oh, it didn't even copy it over because the way you prove Socrates as a man, right, is that you support it with and all men are mortal, right?
Mm-hmm. Those are the atomic ones that I agree they can stay. I'm arguing it.
Wait. So you have, I mean, you have this redundancy here, right? Because there's no preferential order of which one is the actual supporting claim.
So
all men are mortal and the Socrates again.
We talked about that redundancy many times. I don't see it as a redundancy because I mean, depending where you come from, it's relevant to see it there. For me, this is simply the underlying assumption of this is this is the base layer representation of, on a higher level, if you would say something is a compound claim or something is a syllogism or whatever extra formalism you desire.
I've got something.
Right, but that's sort of the intuition, is that a syllogism or some sort of compound claim like that, if you're forced to represent in atomic claims, you get a cycle where each one is supporting each other. In other words, a cycle like that is an indicator that it's maybe multi-premise situation.
Yeah, and I have nothing against that. My question is more like, by only allowing these, you centralize this agreement. Nobody's going to disagree that even if it's redundant, that it's allowed there. It makes sense. And furthermore, you can still argue, you can still add stuff to the supporting and opposing side, however you see fit, and it might be relevant and it might be outside of the realm of a compound claim. The case with syllogism it's really hard to reason about because it's so fundamental. But my point here is, by showing like the other ones, the multi-premise ones, side by side with the atomic ones here, for me that makes the overview for the user at that point less clear, less useful.
Can I share screen?
Yeah.
Tim? So this is, done in 3 minutes, and but basically what I'm saying is we can have a kind of grid. So this is an argument saying both are true for this to be true. Only this one needs to be true. Only this one needs to be false. I can even play with that. I can even change polarity that way. Or I can add as many of those combinations as I want as distinct proofs. And here I'm showing
proofs. It's interesting to call them proofs because that's exactly what I call them. Like the other thing,
sufficient conditions.
Yeah, exactly. The other overview is just all claims that are relevant information. The vertical lines are proofs, which is something different. And yes, I would show them on a separate layer, and this is a nice visualization for that.
But what is nice is it can be even combined with the primary layer. It can be in line in the primary layer. Like you can have some something that says, oh, these are supports of Socrates is Immortal. And if you develop the support, like there would be a big support. And if you develop, you see, okay, well, actually, this one is sufficient, or that one is sufficient. So each of the blue line is a disjunction. There's disjunction between the blue line, and each blue line is a conjunction. So that's one way to do it. And the line could change color if it's weak support versus strong support. We
Yeah, or
play with
type of line, because I mean, they're not all,
Yeah.
that's a problem. That's a problem. Like, this is a very simplistic thing that all lines are like just ands, but the problem is it can be and not, it can be complicated things. And that's the overview I'm telling you. If you show many different blue lines to the user, you're going to lose them. You're going to, yeah, it's basically reading 10 different articles that all come to a different conclusion. And we're back to ground zero. My argument is, if you only show all the atomic claims that are used in any arguments, that's the centralizing disagreement that I'm striving for. That's why I'm saying it makes sense to only show atomic claims.
Well, and show the combination in another layer. No, that is an interesting point. So is that clearer, Tim? What Stephen is pushing for?
No, I don't understand, and
we need a better
the one thing
example.
I understand is, yeah, I guess so. And the one thing, you know, I hear is you're just, okay, shove more information at them. You're trying to say, you're saying it's simpler, and you're saying show all the claims at once that are all being discussed, and you know, it sounds
in context of one claim
rather than organized.
In context of
I understand.
one claim.
Right, but for example, going back to the all men are mortal thing, let's say that you don't have redundancy, right? Then you only get like something that is a syllogism. You're only stating half of it to the person. It's like any case of let's generalize to missing premises, right? The problem, missing premises is a bad argument, right? Because a lot of times people aren't drawing the same conclusions as you. You know, the example I use a lot is Trump was a great president, and you prove it by saying Trump built a wall. That's a claim, and it can be used to support it, but it's not connecting all the dots for the reader at all. You need to say he built a wall, and the wall is keeping out people that are taking jobs, or there's a whole and that's missing there that would help connect the dots to what they're actually trying to say with that argument, right? And so missing premises is one of the problems I see here, and a multi-premise argument or a compound statement that adds the missing premises is a lot clearer to me to read than to just post some atomic claims that are disconnected.
They're different use cases. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. It's easier to read a lengthy, nicely written argument. That's why you have opinion articles. That's why arguments in singular arguments, yes, you can present.
No, but yeah, don't confuse. Don't confuse missing premises from an article. That's a very different thing. It's a very different thing. It's a half-stated argument as opposed to context. It's not context. It's a half-stated argument.
It's a similar point I'm making. The overview, the canonical overview, shows not just one news article, not just one opinion article. It shows 100, 200, 300, all on one heap. If you assume that there's only one article, you need to draw an argument map of here, 100% right. But the point is that you want to bundle all the claims made in relation to one conclusion in one canonical form where you can find underlying disagreements.
There's actually...
I disagree that's canonical, because, for example, here's another example. I don't think so. I think because if you say like CO2 causes global warming, right? And now you're going to post 1,000 studies that prove that. No, that's unreadable. Instead, what you would rather do is break it into the different specific points that a group of articles make about how it proves it, right? So that you've subcategorized, and so the person just needs to read that category and they get that, right?
I don't look at an argument as being readable. Let's be clear.
I think we're looking at different use cases, and they both have merit. and it's a rule in visualizations that visualizations work within certain range of values. So many data points use this visualization, so many data points use a different one. And in this case, I can see a point for saying it is interesting to compare all different combinations of a few premises and use something like what I drew. And there's another case where there's 1,000 different premises used in small combinations. So you'd rather consume them one combination at a time rather than look at 1,000 premises and then look at a sparse matrix of premise. It depends on the numbers. But I see both points of, yeah, in this case, this is easier to understand. And in that case, that is easier to understand. And that's why we need many visualizations.
Yeah, and it depends on the use case. In the use case I'm arguing for is centralizing claims used in many different arguments in relation to one conclusion. That's the use case.
And you're right, it's a valid use case, but it's not the only use case. But
no,
you're right, it's a valid use case.
It's not. If you want to
like for example, specifically, you know, the Socrates is a man and all men are mortal. I don't think I'm getting anything extra out of seeing Socrates is a man, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man and all men are mortal. All men are mortal and Socrates is a man. There's no information added to me there about, you know, rather than just cleaning that up and just saying Socrates is a man and all men are mortal.
I think you misunderstood because I'm arguing against showing the compounds.
Exactly.
Compounds would never exist on a base layer that I'm arguing for the use case.
And I'm arguing for showing the compounds instead of the confusing mess of every atomic
No, but you argue for a
organization.
confusing mess by saying something that I didn't say. I said only show two claims: Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, nothing else. Unless somebody uses in any argument to come to the conclusion Socrates is mortal, some other claims they would also
All right,
show.
well, let's go to the missing premises case then of Trump built a wall and the wall is keeping out illegal immigrants who have disease. So if you show the atomic claims, what you're going to see is a claim that Trump built a wall. Then you're going to see a claim that disconnected, a wall keeps out illegal immigrants. And then totally disconnected from that, illegal immigrants can pass disease. Right, Trump is a great president because illegal immigrants pass disease. That without the other connecting atomic claims,
it's not relevant.
It's not a tree. Okay, which part of the tree is the right one?
You don't recursively like show all the claims used within the tree and one. You only show one level deep. Obviously, you only show the claims that are used in arguments directly related to the conclusion. And yes, that means that order can matter. But you wouldn't show a claim that's irrelevant to a conclusion if there's no logical connection whatsoever, meaning you can't say because in the relevance. That wouldn't get added because it's irrelevant, it would get removed. But maybe it's best, can you add this example to
but let me put it a different way. Well,
just add this example to the debate graph, we can go over it.
I need to have screen. Oh, I do have control. Can't read because of the pictures of us and map.
Yeah.
Oh, it's at the bottom.
Okay. Is president capitalized? I didn't know.
It depends.
Depends
if
on
it's a
title
proper noun,
case.
it is, and yeah. Okay, so in this case, what would you say? Trump built a wall?
Well, probably you want to say a bit more clear. You wouldn't say Trump built a wall. You would say Trump built a wall on the Mexican border, right?
Or Canadian.
Mhm.
I think people understand. I could see somebody just making that argument. That's fine.
That's a much bigger border. Have fun.
He did around the White House. No,
Yeah.
which also happened.
Yeah. He built a wall around against the world, only for himself, of course.
Yeah. So the wall is indexical. So that this claim can never work on itself. So you would have to say the wall Trump built here. Otherwise, the wall will keep out illegal immigrants, cannot be used anywhere. Unless the wall is a definition you use by, and it's the same definition used in Trump built a wall.
I mean, you could link it to a Wikipedia page, so it could serve as a single definition.
So
right?
we assume it's defined. Okay, the wall is defined as the wall.
Yeah, it's defined.
Trump
And this is one of my reasons why I think that claims and arguments should have different text, because it makes sense to read Trump built a wall and the wall. You can read it well, but the standalone claim would say the the border wall between U.S. and Mexico, whatever. It would be more specific.
I get it, but let's not focus on readability. Let's not focus on readability, because
I got it. Yeah,
the topic is centralizing this agreement. I never argued, never ever that argument maps are readable. If you want a readable argument, write it in plain text, please.
No, I got it. Okay. So does that go here? It's a support of the support that illegal immigrants could carry disease.
What you're adding isn't this for relevance?
Well, yeah, that's the question. Is
no, it's not a
where,
question.
Where would you
right?
put this one?
Well,
this
what
is
are
my
you trying
question:
to add?
is where should it go?
What are you trying to add?
I guess I'm supporting why it matters that the wall will keep out illegal immigrants.
That's relevance, because it requires on the context of Trump built a wall.
Right.
So if you add a supporting, it would be irrelevant. It would get removed, curated out as this has nothing to do with the wall. Well, wait. Well, that's why it depends whether it's indexical or not. So the wall here is the wall that Trump will build, will keep out illegal immigrants. Yeah, no, so it has to be relevant. Wait, Trump built a wall. I really don't like this visualization.
Don't use relevance for conjunction.
No. Let me think what the point is here. Trump built wall. Why is the wall keeps out illegal immigrants added to relevance of Trump built a wall?
It's not. It's added to relevance of the wall will keep out illegal immigrants. Trump built a wall. True or false? True. Okay. The wall will keep out illegal immigrants is a reason why it's good that Trump built a wall, right?
That is a good president.
That's why it's important to state.
Okay. No. The wall will keep out illegal immigrants is relevant in context of Trump is a good president, right?
No.
Why no?
Trump built a wall.
Yeah, supporting the wall keeps. How is that related to Trump built a wall? Yes, Trump built a wall, but how do you support that conclusion with the wall will keep out illegal immigrants? I don't. Okay, no. So you're saying it is relevant that Trump built a wall
because the wall will keep out illegal immigrants.
So you're saying Trump is a good president because he built a wall?
Because he built a wall.
Which is relevant because the wall will keep out illegal immigrants. Is that what this means in debate graph?
Yes.
So the relevant block here in the middle of the screen points to relevant in context of Trump being a good president, correct?
Right, exactly. Why is this relevant to this? And in this case, why is this relevant to that? right?
Yeah, and now you're trying to
Because
say
illegal
illegal
immigrants,
immigrants
yeah.
have COVID. Why don't you just add illegal immigrants have COVID to relevance? To the previous
here?
relevance, it doesn't fit. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because it's standalone. Trump built a wall. If I say Trump built a wall, and
Folks,
that's
I have a hard
important
stop.
because immigrants, okay.
Okay, I guess we're
but
finishing this
that's
diagram, but
that's where it
and
belongs.
see
It
you on
doesn't
Friday,
belong where
Market
you.
One.
It doesn't belong where you just added illegal immigrants of COVID-19 is relevant because he built a wall and the wall will keep out. You have to move the illegal immigrants of COVID
Well, you
to
just
the
said
other
and.
relevance.
You just said an and.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
but
have
the
an
way
and.
the way you all end in a base layer is by placing them side by side. So you place illegal immigrants of COVID in the
That's
first
not
relevant
true
block.
because then these
See,
should all
Market
be
One.
top level. These should all be
Yes.
top level because
Yes.
if Trump built a wall and the
Yeah.
wall will keep out illegal agreements and illegal
Yeah.
immigrants have COVID.
Yeah,
So
and
none
there's
of
no
them are.
problem with that. There's no problem with that.
Okay, okay. This is exactly the point I was making because then I say, you know, Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, right? There's no ordering
There's no relation.
of there's no ordering here, and now you've got thrown in the middle of because
Yeah.
now it could look like
But
Trump moved the
you've-
embassy to Jerusalem
I
and
get that,
illegal immigrants
Timothy.
have COVID.
I get
It's
that,
totally
Timothy, and
confusing.
many times you've pointed out there's a lot of duplication. I never argued against duplication. So
It's
please
not duplication. It's total confusion of ordering. There's no relationship between one and the other here because look,
You're
Trump
both
built a
high-five.
wall and the the wall keeps out illegal immigrants.
No, you don't allow duplicates, so you would use the same one that was in the other one, right? You would
Whatever.
link
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
existing
correct.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the point. The
Okay.
point is,
So now you have an overview. Why was Trump a great president here? And you can show disagreement on atomic claims on the asset base layer, because all of these are things that people say in context of Trump being a great president or not, which is my point.
no, you're not getting the point.
It's less readable. There's more duplication,
imposed-
sure.
No. But Trump imposed sanctions, tariffs on stuff, whatever. And now, oh, I put it on. Why did that become a con? Okay, and now. And now, Trump built a wall. This one you're saying should be side by side. So legal immigrants, copy.
Yes, but you wouldn't add illegal immigrants, for example, on the base layer of Trump. I mean, you could do that, but it would not many people would say Trump was a great president because illegal immigrants bring COVID. People wouldn't say that, right? So that wouldn't show up on a base layer.
In fact, they do. In fact, they do. Texans were making an argument that Biden was putting them at risk, even though they've totally opened doors on everything. They're saying that Biden has put them at risk because he is causing an influx of illegal immigrants who have COVID-19. So literally, this is an argument that's been made.
No. I'm saying, would anyone say as a supporting argument to Trump is a good president? Yes, because immigrants bringing COVID-19.
No, and that's exactly my point. You said that, no, they would say he's a good president because he built a wall and it keeps out illegal immigrants and they have COVID-19. And you said ands go side by side. That's exactly what you said. Ands go side by side. There you go. They're going side by side,
I think that's a point.
mixed in with others. How there's no, if they're side by side and there's other arguments at the same level, where are they going side by side?
That's relevance. So you don't add illegal immigrants. Okay, I would argue if somebody adds illegal immigrants have COVID-19, I would just downvote the shit out of it. That's not relevant in context of was Trump a great president.
No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
I'm not missing the point. It's much more logical to say Trump was a great president because he built a wall than it is to say Trump was a great president because illegal immigrants have COVID-19.
Why did I put that up there? I put that up there at your behest because you said, no, ands go side by side. And I'm pointing out that side by side,
Can you,
Listen-
if you do it
listen
on
to
my
me.
behest, can you add it to one level deeper on the relevant where I said I would add it?
Sure. And here is exactly the point repeated what I'm trying to make, which is when it's side by side, it's no longer an and, it's a collection of standalone statements. And when
Which
somebody
is-
makes other things like the wall looks pretty,
That would be irrelevance.
right? And
What does the wall look pretty have to do with relevance?
the wall adds
Timothy,
jobs.
what does
These
this
are
have to,
all
why,
saying, huh? These are all
Why does this-
supporting Trump built a wall.
no, you're adding it to relevance. How do these
Exactly.
things make it more relevant?
Make what? The Trump built a wall is the argument. And I'm increasing the relevance of that by saying all the good things the wall does. Yes?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. However, some of these are multi-premise and they require
Mhm.
more explanation. Like
Yeah.
the wall will keep out illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And illegal immigrants have COVID-19. But by putting them side by side, it starts to be, it loses the connection because it gets mixed in with other things that are at the same level.
Yeah, but you can see at this level where does the agreement and disagreement lie, and if you disagree with one of
The longer the and, the more likely you'll get comments like this one up here that seem to have no connection to anything. You
No, but that
disagreed
one-
with
that
this one.
one-
You said nobody would add it. And I said nobody
That
did
one
add
would
it.
be
They were
curated
adding
out.
an and.
I'm arguing that one
Can't
would
be
be curated out.
out.
Why not?
Okay, it's curated out, then where does
So
it go?
first of
You're
all,
saying it's
if-
no longer important? It's important. It's just important in conjunction with a separate claim because
No,
it's a
so try
multi-premise.
to curate it out means it's irrelevant. So can you add a supporting arguments to the relevance of that one to argue why it's relevant in the context of Trump is a good president?
Then you create circular logic. It is
No, because that's one level
because-
deeper.
No, you're just pushing the problem down a layer, but the problem will happen at all layers. It's the exact. Oh, I just pasted rather than copying.
I think you arbitrarily, like, sorry, but I don't see, or I haven't heard people start with the most immediate relevant claim when they make a point. They're not going to say Trump's great president because illegal immigrants have COVID-19. That's not a connection that, if they make the connection, sure, it can stay there. But I don't see that happening.
They would never put it there. That's what I'm telling you. They would not put it there. They
So
would
then
put
remove
it
it.
down below. Okay, but you missed my point, which is the wall will keep out immigrants. And then you support that with illegal immigrants have COVID-19. And you said, no, put it side by side. This thing needs to go away.
No, this can stay there. Well, the problem is that I really hate this UI, so I always need to think 20 times before I know what the hell is relevant and what is.
What I'm saying is when you add an and, you need to add it as relevance in a base layer. You need to keep adding it down. And if you don't
Yes,
support
yes.
multi-premise, you need to keep adding it as a relevance.
Yes.
And each and goes further down the relevance link. You have to keep going
No,
to the side.
like, no.
Oh shoot, I have a hard stop.
Okay.
I think I'm late.
But yeah, there's duplication
Wow.
there. So what can you next time try to see how multiple competing ends would show up? Like you combine
It
these, and
works
some
if
people
you-
will say
if
the
you
wall
go
looks
down.
pretty and the wall keeps out illegal immigrants, and somebody else says illegal immigrants have COVID-19 and the wall will keep out illegal immigrants. Like that's my question. How do you put these, like where you combine multiple ones and represent them side by side? Because we've talked at great length about this problem, which I keep arguing. I don't see it as a problem.
All right, I'll do that. I don't, I don't.
Because that's my question, right? How do you show
I don't disagree. There's a way to more or less represent it in the base layer. I just don't think it's the way you're saying it. That's the point. So I'll try to lay it out at how it makes sense to me. But you know, maybe I have to do it in a separate tool because you're not familiar with.
Just make it in
seeing it in a
free-form
map, but-
tool, like this diagram.
No.
I
will
think
not.
Excel could
No.
afford that. I don't
Well,
really get why.
maybe.
I don't really get what was wrong with the Excel attempt, but
I mean, Excel was
it's
fine
not
for
visual.
me.
It's not representative. Yeah.
I think it was fine.
All right, I gotta go.
yeah.
Okay.
See you next
then
time.
See you on Friday. Bye.
How do I hang up?